This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on minimum support price farm bills. The participants are Ashok Tandon, political analyst, and Neelab Srivastav, journalist.
There are apprehensions in the mind of the farmers that the new farm laws may lead to the dismantling of the MSP system, leave them vulnerable and at the mercy of the corporate players. When we are talking and discussing about the entire farm sector as such, the few farmer associations, largely the two agrarian states of Punjab and Haryana, have given a Delhi Chalo call, and some of them have entered Delhi. Few are at the Delhi's borders. Now, it is important to inform our listeners that the three farm laws were recently passed by the central government in the parliament. If I can just name them, the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Act, the Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement of Price Assurance Act, the Farmer Services and the Essential Commodities Amendment Act. Mr. Tandon, your views on these entire developments?
First of all, the central government, particularly the Agriculture Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, has been repeatedly saying that the government is open for a dialogue with the farmers on all issues. So therefore, the doors are open and the farmers can anytime get into a dialogue with the government, and whatever the apprehensions are can be addressed by the government, and also if they have certain concrete suggestions, the government is willing to discuss those. So therefore, the Romer has repeatedly appealed to the farmers to give up their agitational approach and come to the dialogue table. So having said that, the center says that they must trust the central government, because according to the government, the three farm laws will certainly transform Indian agriculture and attract private investments while liberating the farmers by giving them the freedom to sell their produce anywhere in the country. So the only ticklish issue, or rather the contentious issue, according to me, is that the farmers want the minimum support price, that is MSP, should continue along with the three central government laws. And they say the government should give MSP a legal provision. And that has been the bone of contention. Now, the government has repeatedly said, even on the floor of the House, while piloting the bill, that we have no intentions of doing away with the MSP. But they say, no, we need a legal framework for MSP. And the government argument is that MSP has never been as in the statute books. It has never been part of any law. But again, even then, the government repeatedly and successive governments have adhered to the MSP. And this government has absolutely no intention of doing away with the MSP. So, if we summarize the whole issue, the farmers' agitation vis-a-vis the government is that the farmers want MSP to be given a legal provision, and the government is willing to negotiate on that and talk to them that all along, even when the MSP was introduced long ago as a part of the Swaminathan Commission's recommendation, and it was basically to protect the farmers' interest. So, but nowhere this was given any legal framework, and so that I think is the main contentious point between the two sides, because we all know that the MSP is fixed by the Commission for Agriculture Cost and Prices, CACP. And even CAPC has no legal sanction. It's not part of any act. So it is basically that the farmers will have to trust the government, that the MSP will continue. So that is the real issue.
You very rightly said that the government has floated a meeting between the farmer organizations, representatives and the agriculture minister. He himself is on record to say that they can meet him on December 3rd. There have been different voices since these bills and then the act was passed, Mr. Tandon. The government on its part, including the Prime Minister, multiple forums, he has said that these are revolutionary laws that will unshackle the entire agriculture sector, the farmers, the mandis, from the clutches of the middlemen. Whereas the politics associated with it, there are few who would suggest that this is a political issue. We also have a context where one of the ally partners of the government had resigned, and then a lot of political voices also coming in. How do you see this?
The concern of the farmers is, particularly from Punjab and Haryana who are protesting, is that the new system could see the end of MSP system, which the center has not written into the new farm bill. But what is MSP? Actually, it's a priority for the farmer, because the whole idea behind Swaminathan Commission recommending the MSP to be announced in respect of 23 crops, which the successive governments have done every year prior to the harvesting season. And therefore, to suspect that this MSP will be done away with is not at all correct, and this apprehension is totally unfounded, and that is where the question of politicizing the farmer issue is coming into the picture. Setting an MSP is meant to insulate farmers from price drops and encourage production, even if there is a bumper crop, and to ensure that reserves are maintained. So if market price for these crops falls below the specified MSP, then the government purchases the produce offered by the farmer. Now in the new act, the government says while the MSP will continue, the farmers will be at liberty to sell their produce in the open market, in the mandis, and get, if possible, more than the MSP price. So this aspect the government is highlighting, that this will revolutionize, because we all know that there are middlemen who exploit the farmer, and in the name of getting them MSP, they get a tremendous amount of cut prior to what the farmers get. Now when the farmer in his own cart or in his own tractor can go to the mandi, straight away sell at the price in the open market to whosoever is willing to buy, but it will not be less than MSP, because if the market price is less than MSP, then the government will buy it on MSP price. So I think this needs to be clarified to farmers, and I do hope that very soon the farmer leaders will realize it, and the government will certainly find a solution, because the central government currently set the MSP for 23 crops based on the CSCP recommendation. So therefore the government is giving MSP in terms of 7 cereals, 5 pulses, 7 oilseed, 4 commercial crops. So I don't think that the farmers will remain unsatisfied if they come to the negotiating table and have a dialogue with the government, because they are not trusting the state legislatures which have been enacted in the Congress ruled states like Punjab, even Chhattisgarh. They say that these are state legislations which have no legal sanctity, because ultimately the central laws will prevail.
The point of MSP, as you said, Mr. Tandon, that has been in talks. I mean, we have seen reports where the issue of MSP and giving a legal sanctity to it. So what are the challenges that come with legalizing the MSP system? You very recently just said that the committee that fixes the MSP doesn't have a legal framework, doesn't have a legal sanctity or a backup. And the other concern of the farmers is about the APMCs. Now, they think that these 3 laws, when they come into play, this will open the agriculture sale and marketing outside the notified APMC or the agriculture produce market committees, because as we understand that there are a lot of alatiyas or the middlemen with whom the farmers align with, and then they sell their produce. So how do you see the way forward? How can this be resolved between a communication and what probably is a miscommunication, if at all it is happening with the farmers?
See, no, it is nobody's case that this mechanism is foolproof, because 27,000 mandis all over the country where farmers can go. But this is not the real issue, because the farmers are being misled in believing that the corporate sector will come into the picture. Not only they will buy your produce, but they will also go for a corporate farming. And there the small farmers will have to leave farming and go for somewhere else. And that is one of the concerns of the farmers. What will happen to the small farmers who are now depending largely on the MSP? But I think all these things can be negotiated. When the bill was being discussed in Parliament, all these apprehensions were voiced by the opposition, and the apprehensions were very rightly and dispelled by the government. And at that time, there was absolutely no agitational approach. And later on, when Punjab made it a political issue and enacted its own law, and assuring the farmers of Punjab that we will give you MSP but only in respect of wheat and rice. But the farmers believe that the central law, unless it is given assent by the president, will not become a law in the state. So all these apprehensions have been given in the minds of the farmers, and that's why even there are doubts whether all the people who are marching towards Delhi or who are camping in Delhi are genuinely farmers or not. It may be political workers, you never know. So I think particularly this kind kind of agitation being done in the wake of the pandemic is not good for the health of the farmer, and I think the best course for the farmers, agitating farmers, would be to come to the dialogue table with the government. The farmers, by and large, will have to have faith that the government of the day is not anti-farmer. And the farmer leaders who are genuine leaders and the farmer organizations which are there, about 30 organizations are not happy with these legislation. But all of them can enter into negotiation also. So there is no problem which cannot be solved through dialogue.
When we talk about the agri sector, the farmers and the mandi system across the country, Mr. Tandon, the agriculture sector has had its own set of unique problems and challenges. The entire issue that plagues the agriculture sector, the agrarian sector as such, what are the issues you think are the most challenging? And also, because this is aligned with the government will that it has already said that they are working to double the farmers' income, increase their productivity, increase the profit that they can get, and also be masters of their own produce. So how do you see this entire thing in consonance with the recent development?
Before that, I would like to add one thing, that Punjab Chief Minister, who is spearheading this campaign and trying to assure the farmers that the Punjab has done and passed the bill. But can Punjab manage on its own the 30 to 32 million tons of grain, wheat and paddy, which it procures for the central pool on MSP? So experts say that Punjab can do it maybe for some years, but only by putting in place an effective procurement system, as there is a huge demand for wheat and paddy in Indian markets, as well as even in the international market. So therefore, Punjab also needs to shift to other crops gradually as per demand of the domestic and international market. Because the assurance which Narendra Singh has given to farmers is only in respect of wheat and paddy. So, because Punjab also has multiple crops. It's not only wheat and paddy. What about assurance buying on MSP by Punjab government about the other crops also? So these are some of the issues which need to be debated by experts. So I think the farmers should listen to the agriculture experts in the country and also the recommendation of the Swaminathan Commission. All these formula which we are talking about were based on the recommendations. So why can't we discuss the report of the Swaminathan Commission? And I think the answer lies in that for all the problems which are now agitating the farmers.
Right, Mr. Tandon. Also, the one last question, if I can put you with the time available with us, is the kind of challenges that the agriculture sector faces and also the kind of solutions that the government has tried to offer to the farmers, not only with these three acts, but the scheme or the intention of doubling the farmers' income. I think the Prime Minister and the government has many a time said this, that they are working on this. Do you think that these are interlinked?
I think if you look at the overall agricultural reform which this government has introduced in the last 6 years and a large number of beneficial schemes which have been put in place directly in the pocket of the farmers, all these things put a very, very positive picture about the interest of the farmers. The government is certainly concerned about, and all these schemes, whether it is Jan Dhan Yojana or whether it is cash dole being given, whether it is subsidy for fertilizer, all these schemes put together need to be discussed. And unfortunately, as I said, and the farmers are looking only at in a very myopic way, particularly on the issue of MSP, which they think because it has not been given a legal provision, therefore the government may do away with that. And if they do away with MSP, then corporatization will take place in the farm sector and only the big farmers will survive and medium and small farmers will be the loser. All these propaganda is being done on social media elsewhere, and the government is trying. Actually, the question you asked me was about the slow agriculture growth, low farm income and volatility in the food prices. That is why these farm bills have been clubbed together. That the first makes APMCs virtually redundant, and the second sets the ground for contract farming as pre-agreed prices, and the third removes state control over the amount of cereal, pulses, oilseed, etc. and removes the middle person. That is the crux of these things. All these three changes were needed to enable the entry of large private players into the farming. That doesn't mean they will come and grab your farm. And therefore, a large scale, the crucial crop had to be removed from the essential commodity because of all these problems which they were facing.
We hope that all these issues are discussed threadbare and a common solution, a win-win situation with solutions for both the sides as soon as they sit down and talk comes very soon in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on minimum support price, farm bills. The participants were Ashok Tandon, political analyst, and Neelab Srivastav, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our website, newsonair.com. You may email opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.